The night glittered over Manhattan like broken glass, beautiful, sharp, and full of danger. Inside the penthouse suite at the Plaza Hotel, laughter spilled through the crack of a half-closed door. Bradley Cole didn't bother lowering his voice. He never did. Not when he felt untouchable. Not when he thought his pregnant wife was home, asleep, trusting him the way she always had. A champagne bottle rolled across the marble floor, bumping into a red heel Tara's heel. Her giggle echoed through the suite, careless and sweet, the kind a younger woman used to convince herself she was winning. The city lights danced across Bradley's Rolex as he pulled her closer, whispering promises he had once made to another woman. Promises that now meant nothing. Across town, in a darkened office on Fifth Avenue, Marissa Cole stared at her phone with shaking hands. She hadn't planned to check Bradley's location. She wasn't the jealous type. She wasn't the insecure type. She wasn't the type to track a man who claimed he loved her. But pregnancy changes many things. Stress changes more. And betrayal changes everything. The screen glowed. Plaza Hotel Suite level. A place Bradley only booked for executive overnights. Her heartbeat stuttered. She tried calling. No answer. Then another. Straight to voicemail. And then her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. No text. Just a video file. She tapped it with the fear of someone opening a coffin. The footage was shaky, taken secretly, probably by a hand pretending to fix a strand of hair. But the scene was unmistakable. Bradley's arms around Tara, his mouth pressed to her neck, his voice dripping with desire she hadn't heard in months. Marissa didn't cry. Shock has a way of freezing the soul before the tears can come. She set the phone down carefully, like it was made of explosives. Maybe it was. As her breath trembled, a sharp pain wrapped around her ribs. The doctor had warned her high stress was dangerous for the baby. But how could she feel anything except the crushing weight of the truth? 6 months pregnant. Alone. And now, humiliated. She walked into the bedroom. The city lights filtered through the curtains, painting her reflection in cold silver. She opened the drawer where Bradley kept important documents. A blank divorce form sat on the bottom, untouched for years. A joke they used to make. "We'll never need this," he once teased as he kissed her forehead. Tonight, she filled it out. Her signature trembled, but it was there, undeniable, final. She placed the papers on the marble kitchen counter, beside her wedding ring. The platinum band looked painfully small, almost fragile, nothing like the promises it once held. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed again. A second message. This time, just 4 words. "He won't stop here." She froze. Someone knew more. Someone was warning her. And worse, someone was watching him. And that meant this betrayal was only the beginning. The elevator hummed softly as Marissa rode down from the empty conference room, her mind replaying the video over and over like a cruel loop she couldn't escape. Outside, Fifth Avenue buzzed with its usual late-night rhythm horns, footsteps, laughter. But inside her chest, everything felt hollow, silent, wrong. She stepped onto the sidewalk and forced herself to breathe. The cold air stung her cheeks, grounding her just long enough for another notification to light up her phone. She hesitated before tapping it open. A second video. This one worse. Bradley wasn't just kissing Tara now. He was bragging. "She's too distracted with the pregnancy to notice anything," he laughed, smug, shirt half-buttoned. "She's become predictable." Predictable. The word hit harder than betrayal itself. Marissa's throat tightened. She pressed a hand against her stomach, feeling a faint flutter beneath her palm. Her baby didn't deserve any of this. Neither did she, but pain didn't care about fairness. She walked toward the glass doors of her building, trying to steady her breathing as the doorman greeted her with gentle concern. "Mrs. Cole? Are you all right?" She nodded, but her legs trembled. The elevator ride up felt endless, each floor a reminder of everything collapsing. When she reached the penthouse, the silence was suffocating. She flipped on a light, soft, warm, almost mocking. Bradley had insisted on these designer fixtures, claiming they made the home feel important. Now they only made it feel empty. She opened their bedroom closet to grab a sweater, and noticed something she had missed earlier. A storage box shoved carelessly behind Bradley's tailored suits. Inside were folders labeled with financial codes she recognized from her work. But these numbers, they didn't match public reports, and some bore her forged signature. A chill shot down her spine. He wasn't just cheating, he was using her name to cover something bigger. Her pulse quickened. The first message's warning echoed again. He won't stop here. Whoever sent it, they knew. Tears finally broke loose as she sank onto the edge of the bed. The betrayal, the lies, the hidden crimes, it was too much for one night, too much for one heart already stretched thin. For the first time in years, Marissa whispered into the empty room, "I don't know if I can survive this." But the world wasn't done breaking her open. Not yet. The city outside her penthouse window glittered with winter lights, but inside, Marissa felt swallowed by darkness. She paced slowly across the hardwood floor, one hand supporting her lower back, the other gripping the edge of the kitchen counter for balance. Every breath felt sharp. Every thought felt heavier than the last. The forged documents, the financial discrepancies, the videos, the warning message. It was all too much for one night. Her gaze drifted to the blank divorce packet still lying on the marble island. Bradley had tossed it in a drawer months ago during a small argument, just in case, he had joked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. But we'll never use it. Now the irony cut deeper than any betrayal. Marissa pulled out a chair and sat down slowly, exhaling shakily as she smoothed the papers with trembling fingertips. Her engagement ring tapped against the surface, a soft echo in the silent room. She stared at the diamond, remembering the promises attached to it, safety, partnership, a family. All illusions now. She reached for a pen, but her hand hesitated mid-air. Was she really ready? Was this truly the end? Then another contraction of emotional pain tightened her chest, not physical, but something inside breaking cleanly. She remembered Bradley telling Tara she was too distracted. She remembered the forged signature, the way he laughed while destroying their family. Yes, it was the end. With a shaky inhale, she signed her name. It wasn't the confident signature she once used in boardrooms. This one looked fragile, frayed, like a woman trying to hold herself together long enough to survive. But it was hers, and it was final. She slid the papers beneath his favorite Mont Blanc pen symbolic, deliberate, and placed her wedding ring on top. The platinum band glinted cold under the overhead lights, no longer a symbol of love, but of lies she refused to carry into the future. When she stood, dizziness washed over her. For a moment, she gripped the counter, fighting for balance. The doctor's warning echoed again. Stress can trigger early complications. You must protect yourself. But how does a woman protect herself when the danger is her own husband? Marissa wiped her tears with the back of her sleeve, grabbed a small suitcase, and stepped toward the front door. Every step felt like walking away from the ruins of a life she once believed in. Behind her, the divorce papers waited quiet, sharp, and ready to shatter everything Bradley thought he controlled. The penthouse had never felt so quiet. Not even the hum of the heating system or the distant horns from Fifth Avenue could soften the heavy silence pressing down on Marissa's chest. She stood by the entryway, suitcase half-zipped, breathing slowly as she tried to stop her hands from shaking. This wasn't just a home. It was where she imagined raising her baby, where she hung the first ultrasound photo on the fridge, where she waited countless nights for a husband who no longer came home for her. Now every corner felt poisoned with lies. She walked into the nursery just for a moment, she told herself. The walls were still bare, waiting for the mural she had planned. A soft plush elephant sat on the windowsill, a small gift she'd bought after hearing the heartbeat for the first time. She picked it up, holding it against her chest. A wave of grief nearly knocked her to her knees. This was supposed to be our beginning, she whispered into the dim room. But beginnings can shatter too. She slipped the stuffed elephant into her suitcase and zipped it shut. Then, Gathering every ounce of strength she had left, she returned to the kitchen island. The divorce papers lay neatly where she had arranged them, her wedding ring glinting beneath the warm overhead light. The Mont Blanc pen rested across the signature line like a final punctuation mark to a dying marriage. She added one more thing, a short handwritten note. "I hope someday you realize what you destroyed." No anger, no accusations, just the quiet truth. With a final glance around, Marissa turned off the lights one by one. The penthouse darkened behind her, each click sounding like a door closing on a past she could no longer carry. As she stepped into the hallway, a sharp cramp tightened across her abdomen. She grabbed the wall, breathing through it. Not now. Not tonight. She waited until the pain eased before moving toward the elevator. Downstairs, the doorman looked startled to see her with luggage at this hour. "Mrs. Cole, do you need help?" "No," she said softly, forcing a small smile. "But thank you." The revolving doors opened, spilling her into the cold Manhattan night. Snowflakes drifted through the air, catching in her hair as if the sky itself was mourning with her. She pulled her coat tighter, lifted her chin, and walked toward the street. Behind her, the life she knew, every memory, every lie, every heartbreak locked itself inside the penthouse she would never return to. Bradley Cole walked into the executive lobby that morning with the swagger of a man who believed the world still belonged to him. Tara Jensen strutted beside him, her curls bouncing, her lips painted in a shade too bold for an intern, but perfect for a mistress seeking power. She clung to his arm as if she owned it, owned him. The receptionist, normally polite, looked away. Even she sensed the storm brewing. Bradley didn't. He never did. He pushed open the glass doors to the conference area, ready to bask in his usual attention, but whispers rose like smoke the moment he stepped inside. A group of junior analysts exchanged looks. One of them, nervous but determined, angled their phone discreetly. Tara noticed. She liked attention. She lived for it. "Should I give them something to talk about?" she whispered, giggling as she pulled down the collar of her designer coat, just enough to reveal a delicate Tiffany necklace. "Don't!" Bradley hissed. "We have to be subtle." But subtle wasn't in Tara's vocabulary. She lifted the necklace dramatically, letting the overhead lights catch the diamonds. "He bought it for me last night," she announced with a sugary voice, loud enough for the room to hear. "Said I deserved something special." Several jaws dropped. A manager choked on his coffee. Someone muttered, "Isn't his wife pregnant?" The intern with the phone kept recording. Bradley's expression tightened, not with guilt, but fear. The video, the whispers, the eyes studying him. He could feel control slipping. But Tara, hungry for validation, doubled down. "Oh, and the suite," she added, twirling a curl. The plaza had the most incredible view. "I swear I've never. That's enough," Bradley snapped, grabbing her elbow. "Why?" she teased loudly. "Afraid someone will tell your wife?" The room went silent. Bradley's jaw clenched, a flicker of panic exposed, before he smoothed it over with a fake smile. He guided Tara toward his office, but the damage was done. The video already existed. The whispers would spread like wildfire. And then he saw it, one of the senior directors watching him with a raised brow, arms crossed, suspicion sharp as glass. Something inside Bradley twisted. He had no idea Marissa had already left him. No idea she had found evidence that could ruin him. No idea his mistress had just handed the office a perfect scandal. But the internet knew, phones knew, the walls knew. Bradley Cole was no longer untouchable. Snowflakes clung to Marissa's coat as she pushed open the revolving doors of her Fifth Avenue building. The cold had numbed her face, but it couldn't numb the ache inside her chest. Every step felt heavier than the last, her suitcase wheels bumping softly against the marble floor. The doorman rushed to help, but she lifted a hand gently. "I'm okay," she whispered. But she wasn't. The moment she crossed the lobby, the warmth hit her like a tidal wave, triggering a sudden dizziness. Her vision blurred around the edges. She reached out for the wall, fingers scraping the polished stone as she swallowed a wave of nausea. Not now! Please, not now! She blinked, trying to focus on the chandeliers overhead. The shimmering crystals fractured into 1,000 pieces, spinning, tilting like her entire world had been doing since last night. "Mrs. Cole," the concierge called out, stepping toward her. "You look pale." "Should I call Marissa?" Didn't hear the rest. A sharp, stabbing pain shot through her abdomen. She gasped, clutching her belly. Her knees buckled. The suitcase toppled beside her with a heavy thud. Somewhere in the distance, someone shouted her name. She wasn't sure who. Her hands pressed against the marble, cold seeping through her palms as her breath became ragged. It wasn't just emotional collapse anymore. Her body was failing under the weight of everything she'd been forced to carry. She squeezed her eyes shut. "Don't let this hurt the baby, please." Footsteps pounded across the floor. A man's voice, steady, deep, familiar, from boardrooms and industry events, cut through the panic. "Give her space. Call emergency services. Now." A strong arm slid behind her back, supporting her as she leaned into an unfamiliar warmth. She forced her eyes open. The blur sharpened into a face she recognized from magazine covers and keynote stages. Julian Cross, CEO, Billionaire. The man whose company had once partnered with hers. The man who had complimented her strategic mind after a presentation months ago. The man who should not be here, but somehow was. "You're safe," he said softly, guiding her upright. "I've got you." Marissa shook her head weakly. "I just need a minute." But her body betrayed her again, sagging against him. Julian tightened his grip, his expression shifting from concern to something fiercer, protective, almost angry on her behalf. "Who did this to you?" he asked, voice low. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. "My husband," she whispered. "He broke everything." Julian exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. Then he has no idea what he's just started. The ambulance siren faded into the distance, leaving behind an eerie stillness in the private medical suite where Julian insisted Marissa be examined. Warm lights glowed softly against the cream-colored walls, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside Julian Cross's chest. He stood near the window, arms crossed, watching snow settle over Fifth Avenue like ashes after a fire. Behind him, Marissa lay on the exam bed, her breaths shallow but steady. A nurse checked her vitals, whispering gentle reassurances. "She's experiencing acute stress," the nurse explained quietly. Her blood pressure spiked. "The baby seems stable, but she needs rest. Emotional rest." Julian nodded, jaw tight. Emotional rest. Something she clearly hadn't been given in a long time. When the nurse left, the room fell into a fragile silence. Marissa watched Julian with tired eyes, still puffy from tears she'd tried to hide. She looked too small for the storm she was being forced to weather. "You don't have to stay," she whispered, voice cracking. "I know this isn't your problem." Julian turned, eyes locking on hers with a seriousness that made her breath hitch. "It became my problem the moment I saw you collapse," he said quietly. "No one breaks like that without a reason." She swallowed hard, looking away. Her fingers fidgeted with the thin hospital blanket, twisting it until her knuckles whitened. "It's my marriage," she said finally. "What's left of it?" Julian pulled a chair close, sitting beside her with a calm she didn't expect. "Tell me." She hesitated, shame, fear, exhaustion warring on her face. Then the dam broke. She told him about the video, the affair, the forged financial documents, the message warning her he wouldn't stop. Each confession weighed heavier, poisoning the air between them. Julian didn't interrupt, but with every detail, his expression darkened. Not with pity, with anger. Cold, controlled, dangerous anger. When she finished, she wiped at her eyes fiercely, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to unload all this." "You shouldn't be the one apologizing," Julian said. His voice was low, steady a blade wrapped in velvet. Bradley didn't just betray you, he endangered you. And your child. Marissa's lip quivered. I don't know what to do next. Julian leaned forward slightly. I do. She looked up, startled. He held her gaze, a man not offering charity but protection. You're not going back to that house, he said. Not tonight. Not ever. The way he said it made her believe, for the first time in months, that escape might actually be possible. The quiet of the medical suite wrapped around Marissa like a thin blanket warm, but never enough. After the nurse dimmed the lights and left them alone, the silence grew heavier, pressing against her chest, urging the truth out of her. Julian sat nearby, not speaking, not crowding her, simply present. It was the first time in months she didn't feel watched, judged, or measured. And that safety, it broke something loose inside her. I thought I could fix it, she whispered. Her voice sounded foreign, as if it belonged to someone older, worn down by too many disappointments. Every time he pulled away, I tried harder. Every time he lied, I convinced myself I was imagining it. She laughed softly, bitterly. I kept telling myself marriage goes through phases, that I was just emotional because of the pregnancy, that if I changed, he would come back to me. Julian's brows tightened, but he let her continue. I stopped painting, stopped meeting friends. I stopped sleeping. Her hand drifted to her stomach. I told myself the baby would bring us closer. But I was wrong. Everything I did, he made me feel like it wasn't enough. Her breath hitched, and for a moment she fought the tears, but grief always finds the cracks. It's like I became invisible, Julian, like I was just in the way. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth as the tears finally spilled over. Months of self-blame, fear, and forced composure dissolved into a raw, quiet sob that filled the dimmed room. Julian moved not fast, not dramatic, but with the steady confidence of someone who knew exactly how not to hurt her. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to offer comfort, but far enough to let her choose. You were not the problem, he said softly. Marissa shook her head. But he made me feel like, no. His voice deepened, calm but unyielding. A man who betrays his pregnant wife is not a man capable of love. He didn't break you because you were weak. He broke you because he thought you wouldn't fight back. She froze, stunned by the truth in his words. Julian inhaled slowly. But he's wrong. You're stronger than you think. And you're not alone in this. Her eyes met his fear, hurt, and a flicker of something else. The first spark of self-worth returning. For the first time in a long time, she believed she might survive this. Bradley Cole walked into the penthouse just after midnight, humming to himself with the arrogance of a man who believed secrets could stay buried forever. His tie hung loose around his neck, the faint scent of Tara's perfume still clinging to his shirt. He barely noticed. He was too busy rehearsing excuses he assumed Marissa would swallow, like she always did. Marissa! He called out lazily, tossing his keys onto the console table. I'm home! Silence answered him. He frowned. Usually she waited up, even when she pretended not to. He moved deeper into the penthouse, switching on lights as he went. The place felt colder than usual, as if someone had opened a window and let winter crawl inside. Marissa? He tried again, irritation creeping into his tone. Still nothing. He entered the kitchen and froze. There, on the marble island, beneath the soft glow of the pendant lights, sat the divorce papers. His name, her signature, and beside it, her wedding ring, glinting like a shard of ice. What the hell? Bradley reached for the papers with trembling fingers. His eyes scanned the signature again, as if expecting it to disappear. No, impossible. Marissa wouldn't leave. She wouldn't dare. Then he saw the handwritten note. I hope someday you realize what you destroyed. The words hit him harder than any slap could. His breath stuttered. His palms grew damp. A rumble of panic rose in his chest knot, because he had lost her, but because she had left first. She had taken the power. She had walked away from the control he always assumed he owned. No, 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 Bradley muttered, pacing. Where would she go? Who helped her? He stormed through the penthouse bedroom, closet, office, each room, proving the same truth. She was gone. And she hadn't packed much. Just essentials. Enough to disappear. Then a darker thought crept in. What if she found something? What if she saw the forged documents? The signatures? The missing accounts? His chest tightened. If Marissa talked, if anyone believed her, his career, his reputation, everything he built would collapse. He grabbed his phone and dialed her number. Straight to voicemail, he called again. And again. Nothing. Then, for the first time that night, Bradley felt fear. Not fear of losing his wife, but fear of losing everything he stole to impress the world. And he had no idea that someone much more powerful than him already knew the truth. The next morning, the atmosphere inside Bradley's company crackled with unease. It started as a murmur, low, scattered, curious. Junior analysts huddled near elevator doors, whispering behind coffee cups. Assistants exchanged glances over their MacBooks. Even the usually stoic security team looked unusually alert, as if sensing something in the air. Rumors in corporate Manhattan had a way of spreading faster than wildfire. By 9:15 a.m., everyone had seen something. A screenshot. A blurry video. A whisper that Bradley Cole, the charming, polished finance executive, had been caught cheating on his pregnant wife. Some saw the clip of Tara proudly flaunting a Tiffany necklace. Others caught the muffled audio of Bradley laughing about distractions at home. Someone else posted a vague tweet hinting at internal misconduct. No names, no specifics, but everyone knew. The office, usually full of muted professionalism, now pulsed with electric tension. In the executive wing, a senior director named Harris watched the footage again, his jaw tightening. He had spent years defending Bradley in board meetings, praising his drive and ambition. But the video showed something else entirely. Recklessness, ego, and a blatant disregard for the company's image. He closed his office door without a word. Across the hall, Tara arrived in a tight cream dress, blissfully unaware of the ticking bomb beneath her heels. But the moment she stepped onto the executive floor, she felt it, the stares, the whispers, the sudden hush that followed her like a shadow. She clung to her tote bag, lips parting with uncertainty. "Why are they looking at me like that?" she muttered. But before she could continue, two HR managers approached. "Bradley wants to see you. Now!" Her stomach dropped. Meanwhile, Bradley stormed into his own office, slamming the door so hard a framed award rattled on the wall. He'd been fielding texts all morning, cryptic messages from coworkers, a warning email from PR, and a terse note from the CEO requesting a conversation about conduct. Conduct. The word tasted like acid. And then another hit. A call from the compliance department. "We need to review recent financial documents with your signature," the officer said. "Some things aren't aligning." Bradley froze. He sat down slowly, gripping the edge of his desk as panic tightened around his ribs. His heartbeat thudded in his ears. The cheating rumor was one thing, but the financial discrepancies? That could destroy him. As he stared out the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Manhattan, a cold realization crept over him. This wasn't a scandal. This was the beginning of his downfall. And somewhere far from the office, recovering under calm medical care, Marissa had no idea her truth was already unraveling his world. Marissa sat upright in the hospital bed, a soft blanket draped over her legs, the faint beeping of the fetal monitor steadying her nerves. The doctor had reassured her twice. The baby was stable, but her body was under immense strain. She needed space, rest, and distance from anything that could push her over the edge. Distance from Bradley most of all. As she absorbed the doctor's instructions, Julian Cross stepped back into the room, carrying 2 cups of herbal tea. He moved with quiet confidence, the kind of presence that didn't overwhelm but somehow filled the space. He offered her a cup. "Chamomile. Helps with tension," he said. She accepted it with shaking hands, whispering, "Thank you for everything." Julian hesitated before taking the seat beside her, studying her face not with pity, but with an unsettling understanding. "You're not safe here, Marissa." Her breath caught. "You mean, emotionally?" Julian shook his head once, slow and deliberate. "No, I mean your husband is spiraling, and spiraling men make dangerous decisions." He pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward her. A headline preview flashed across a private news feed, something only executives with deep connections had access to. Anonymous sources report internal misconduct tied to Bradley Cole. Compliance review underway. Marissa's stomach dropped. He did forge my signature, didn't he? Julian didn't sugarcoat it. He did worse than that. And the moment he realizes his world is collapsing, his instinct will be to drag you down with him. A tremor moved through her. What am I supposed to do? I have no one in New York. No family, no support. Julian leaned forward slightly, not intruding, simply offering solid ground in a world that kept falling out from beneath her. I have a jet leaving Teterboro this afternoon. Private, quiet. No records accessible to Bradley or his company. He paused. You can come to California, stay in one of my guest houses in Beverly Hills, recover, have space to breathe. Marissa stared at him, stunned. Julian, that's too much. I can't accept something like that. It's not charity, he said, voice steady. It's protection. You deserve to be somewhere safe while everything stabilizes, and I'd feel better knowing you're not alone. Her eyes burned. No one had spoken to her this gently in years. The choice should have been hard, but when she thought of Bradley's rage, his lies, the forged documents, the suffocating fear, she whispered, barely audible, Okay, I'll go. Julian exhaled, relief flickering across his face. Good, then we leave today. And for the first time in months, Marissa felt the faintest hint of hope. The afternoon sky over Teterboro Airport was streaked with soft winter gold, the kind of light that made everything feel suspended between breaking and beginning. Marissa stepped out of the black SUV Julian had arranged, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled her coat tighter around her growing belly. The runway stretched before her, quiet, private, far removed from the noise of Manhattan. And waiting at the end of it was the Gulfstream G6 50ER, its chrome exterior gleaming like a promise she wasn't sure she deserved. The driver placed her suitcase beside her. Safe travels, ma'am. Safe. A word she hadn't felt in months. Julian approached from the other side of the car, his expression gentler than she'd ever seen on a man so powerful. If you need a moment before boarding, take it, he said softly. She nodded, her gaze drifting to the jet stairs. Each step represented distance from betrayal, from fear, from a life she once fought to protect. Now she wasn't sure if she was leaving a home or escaping a cage. Her phone buzzed. Bradley. Again. Again. And again. She hadn't answered a single call since last night, but the screen now showed a new message, one that made her blood run cold. Where are you? This isn't funny. Come home now. Another followed. We need to talk about those documents. Don't do something stupid. The threat hid between the words, thin, sharp, unmistakable. Marissa turned off the phone. Julian noticed. Trouble? She exhaled shakily. He knows I'm gone, and he's panicking. Julian's jaw tightened. Good. Panic makes men like him careless, and careless men reveal the truth. For the first time, Marissa saw not just kindness in him, but resolve, integrity, a steadiness she hadn't felt around Bradley in years. Still, fear clawed at her chest. What if he follows me? What if he tries to stop me? Julian stepped closer, lowering his voice. He won't get near you. I've already arranged security. The moment you're in the air, you're out of his reach. A gust of wind brushed her hair. She looked back not at the car, not at the driver, but toward Manhattan's skyline in the distance. The life she was leaving behind felt small now, shrinking like a shadow at sunset. "Ready?" Julian asked. Marissa swallowed, placing a protective hand over her stomach. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm ready." With steady steps, she climbed the jet stairs, leaving Bradley, the lies, and the woman she used to be on the ground behind her. Bradley Cole sped down the freeway toward Teterboro Airport, his pulse pounding in his ears, anger and fear twisting inside him like a wire pulled too tight. The luxury sedan swerved as he barked into his phone, leaving yet another voicemail. "Marissa, answer me. You can't just walk out. We need to talk about those documents before someone gets the wrong idea." He knew what she'd found: the forged signatures, the irregular transfers, the financial trails he thought he'd buried deep enough for no one to uncover. He had underestimated her. He always did. Traffic slowed near the terminal, and Bradley cursed under his breath. He shoved the car door open before it fully stopped and sprinted toward the private jet gate. The cold wind whipped across the asphalt, stinging his face. He ignored it. Inside the security building, he slammed his hands on the counter. "My wife, Marissa Cole, did she check in? Tell me where she is." The attendant blinked, startled. "Sir, this is a private jet terminal. Passenger manifests aren't—" "She's pregnant," Bradley snapped. "I need to get to her." Before the attendant could respond, Bradley caught sight of the runway through the glass wall. A sleek Gulfstream G650ER. Stairs retracting, engines revving, taxiing. His heart lurched. No, 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 no! He burst through the exit doors, ignoring security shouting after him. The icy wind tore through his suit as he sprinted across the pavement. His shoes slipped, gravel spitting behind him as he ran harder than he had in years. "Marissa!" he screamed, voice cracking. "Stop! Don't get on that plane! You can't leave!" But the plane was already moving, and Marissa, seated safely behind tinted windows, didn't see him, didn't hear him, didn't need to. Because for the first time, she wasn't looking back. Bradley stumbled to a halt as the jet lifted gracefully off the runway, climbing into the pale winter sky. His breath fogged in the air, sharp and ragged. A security guard approached, gripping his arm firmly. "Sir, you can't be out here." "Step back, please." But Bradley didn't move. He stared at the shrinking silhouette of the plane, realization slamming into him like a truck. He hadn't just lost control. He hadn't just lost the upper hand. He had lost Marissa, and worse, someone powerful enough to whisk her away, already knew everything he'd tried to hide. The moment the jet leveled above the clouds, the world below dissolved into a soft blanket of white quiet, distant, safely out of reach. Marissa hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding her breath until her chest finally loosened. The hum of the engines was steady, soothing, almost like a heartbeat she could borrow while hers tried to repair itself. She sat near the window, fingertips grazing the cool glass. Somewhere beneath the endless sky, Bradley was screaming into the wind, powerless. For the first time, that thought didn't terrify her. It freed her. Julian approached slowly, holding 2 bottles of water. "Hydration helps with altitude," he said with a warm smile, placing one beside her. She managed a soft, grateful nod. "Thank you again. I know I keep saying that." "You're allowed to," he replied, taking the seat across from her. "You've survived more in 2 days than most people do in a lifetime." Marissa exhaled a shaky breath. "It feels like everything fell apart at once. My marriage, my career, my health. I thought I was losing everything." Julian studied her gently. "You didn't lose everything. You lost what was hurting you. There's a difference." She blinked, surprised by the clarity of his words. Silence settled comfortably between them, interrupted only by the subtle rustle of turbulence. Marissa wrapped her arms around herself, and Julian immediately noticed. "Cold?" he asked. "No. Just processing." He nodded, leaning back. "If processing means staring out a window and pretending you're not thinking about throwing your phone into the ocean, then yes, I know the feeling." A small smile tugged at her lips. "That obvious? Only to someone who's done it." She laughed, a fragile sound, but real. It startled her. After a moment, she whispered, Julian, why are you helping me? Really? He didn't deflect, didn't dodge, didn't soften the truth. Because I've watched too many good people get crushed by men who think consequences don't apply to them. His eyes held hers, steady and sincere. And because someone should have helped you long before today. Emotion rose in her throat, warm and overwhelming. Her eyes stung. I don't know who I am without all this pain, she admitted. Julian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That's the good part, he said softly. Now you get to decide. The jet cut through the sky, not taking her away from something, but towards someone she was finally allowed to become. The sun was just beginning to rise over Los Angeles when the jet landed, casting soft gold across the runway. Marissa stepped out cautiously, blinking against the warmth. It felt unreal after months of cold Manhattan mornings, the California air wrapped around her like a gentle promise. A black SUV waited at the edge of the private terminal. Julian guided her toward it with a quiet attentiveness that never felt intrusive. They drove through winding hills lined with towering palm trees, the city sprawling below like a glittering mosaic. When the gates of Julian's Beverly Hills estate parted, Marissa's breath caught. It wasn't extravagant in the loud, show-off way she'd grown used to in New York. Instead, it was serene white stone, tall windows, lavender lining the pathway, a small fountain bubbling softly, a place built for peace, not performance. The driver carried her bags inside, while Julian walked her through the foyer. This guest house is yours as long as you need it, he said. No pressure, no timelines. Marissa glanced around. Sunlight streamed in through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting warm patterns across the hardwood. A spacious living room opened into a kitchen stocked with fresh fruit, herbal teas, and a neatly arranged box of prenatal vitamins. It felt intentional, thoughtful. Julian, she whispered, overwhelmed. I don't know how to thank you for this. You don't need to. His voice held a softness she hadn't heard from anyone in a long time. Just focus on getting better. That's enough. After he left her to rest, Marissa wandered into the guest room. A soft knit blanket lay folded on the bed, and a Kindle rested on the nightstand with a note. In case you need something quiet to escape into. J. She traced the screen gently. The titles loaded onto it were a mix of calming reads, Atomic Habits, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Physique, Women Who Run with the Wolves, books about rebuilding, rediscovering, reclaiming. For the first time since the collapse of her marriage, she felt the tension in her shoulders release. She made a cup of chamomile tea and curled onto the couch, the morning sun warming her legs. The baby kicked softly, as if sensing the shift. Marissa pressed a hand to her stomach, whispering, We're safe now. And for the first time, she believed it. By Monday morning, Bradley Cole's world no longer resembled the polished empire he believed he controlled. The moment he stepped into the office, he sensed it eyes lingering too long, whispers quieting the second he passed, doors closing just a little too fast behind him. He straightened his tie, forcing a confident stride. Perception was everything, but perception couldn't save him now. Before he reached his office, a firm hand landed on his shoulder. It was Director Harris's stoic, unreadable, the kind of man who only approached when something major was brewing. Cole, Harris said, his tone clipped. Compliance needs you. Now? Bradley forced a laugh. Can't this wait? I have... No, Harris interrupted. It can't. They escorted him to a small glass conference room where 3 members of the compliance committee sat with thick folders open in front of them. Bradley recognized the documents immediately: financial reports, transfer logs, flagged signatures. His stomach tightened. The lead officer adjusted her glasses. Mr. Cole, several transactions under your approval show discrepancies. We need clarification. Bradley forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Simple accounting errors. I can clear them up. Then why? She said, sliding a paper across the table. Are there approvals using a signature that does not match your verified file? His throat dried. The page showed the forged signature, Marissa's discovery. He felt the room tilt. "We'll need access to all personal and work devices," the officer continued. "Effective immediately, your accounts are frozen pending review." "Frozen?" Bradley choked out. "You can't do that. I'm a vice president." "A VP under investigation," Harris said flatly. "This is procedure." Panic surged through Bradley's chest. He had built his entire persona on control, controlling money, perception, even people, especially Marissa. But with her gone, the structure he'd leaned on was collapsing like a building with its foundation ripped out. He slammed his palms against the table. "I need to make a call." "You'll have one opportunity," the officer replied. He dialed Marissa, straight to voicemail, again. Voicemail. The third time, he didn't leave a message, just stared at his phone as though he could will her to pick up. His silence stretched until the officer spoke again. "Mr. Cole, is there anything else you want to disclose before this becomes a criminal investigation?" Bradley lifted his eyes. For the first time, he saw the truth. He wasn't losing control. He had already lost it. Morning sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains of the Beverly Hills guest house, warming the quiet space as Marissa sat curled on a lounge chair, a cup of Starbucks herbal tea resting on her belly. For the first time in months, she wasn't waking up to dread. She wasn't bracing for a fight. She wasn't shrinking herself to survive another day beside a man who systematically dimmed her light. Today, she felt something new. Space. Space to breathe. Space to think. Space to exist without fear. She opened her MacBook Air, fingers hovering above the keys. The startup chime echoed softly in the room. Her reflection stared back, tired, but not broken. Bruised, but not defeated. Julian had given her a choice last night, not instructions. "When you're ready, rebuild your life on your terms." Not his. So she began. At first, she typed slowly, hesitantly drafting ideas, deleting them, rewriting them again. But the more she wrote, the more her mind sharpened. Strategy flowed through her fingers, like water finally freed from a dam. A new PR firm. Boutique, selective, ethical, specializing in crisis management and corporate repair, something she understood deeply, painfully, intimately. She knew the industry. She knew the networks. She knew the psychology of reputation better than most executives twice her age. Bradley had spent years convincing her she was too emotional for leadership, but emotional intelligence was the very skill that made her exceptional. After hours of planning, she stepped outside into the garden. Lavender swayed in the breeze, and the faint scent wrapped around her like reassurance. She closed her eyes, letting the California sun soak into her skin. Her baby kicked gently, reminding her she wasn't building this future alone. As she inhaled the warm air, her phone buzzed with a message. From Julian. "How are you feeling today?" She smiled. But before she could answer, another message appeared, this one from an unknown number. A former colleague. "Marissa Bradley's under investigation. Full audit. People are talking. They think you left because you knew." Her pulse steadied, not with fear, but with clarity. For the first time, she wasn't running from something. She was stepping into something. She typed a calm response to Julian. "I'm ready. Ready to rise. Ready to reclaim her voice. Ready to become a woman Bradley would never again recognize or control." And in that moment, Marissa Cole finally understood. Survival wasn't her story anymore. Transformation was. 3 weeks later, Marissa walked through the towering glass doors of Cross Innovation's Manhattan headquarters. Her steps steady, her posture calm, but undeniably changed. She was no longer the woman who cried in penthouse hallways or begged for honesty from a man incapable of giving it. She was here as the founder of Cole Strategic Communications, a boutique PR firm already buzzing through executive circles. And today, she was here as a partner, Julian's partner, brought in to consult on a major crisis project, a project connected directly to Bradley's company. She stepped into the boardroom, sunlight pouring through the windows, casting long reflections across the polished table. Executives murmured to one another, recognizing her, some with surprise, others with respect. Julian stood at the head of the room. The moment he saw her, something unspoken passed between them, trust, admiration, a sense of fate rearranging its weight. "Marissa," he said warmly, "glad you're here." She nodded, taking her seat beside him, placing her slim folder on the table. Inside were documents she had reviewed meticulously, evidence of false reporting, unethical transfers, falsified numbers, evidence she had once unknowingly signed over. The door opened again. Bradley walked in. He paused mid-step, eyes widening at the sight of her. His face drained of color. He looked smaller somehow, his arrogance stripped raw since the investigation began. Tara wasn't with him. HR had already cut her access. "Marissa," he whispered, disbelief choking him. "What are you doing here?" She didn't flinch. "Working." The single word hit him like a slap. Julian gestured to an empty chair across the table. "Mr. Cole, if you'll take a seat, we can begin." Shaken, Bradley sat, trying to gather whatever dignity he had left. Julian opened the meeting. "We're here to discuss the financial misconduct findings and map out the recovery strategy." "Mrs. Cole?" He paused, then corrected himself gently. "Ms. Cole will be leading the communications assessment." The room turned to Marissa. Bradley swallowed hard. "Marissa, please, can we talk privately?" Her gaze was steady, calm, anchored by weeks of healing and truth. "We'll talk here," she said. She opened her folder, sliding a document across the table, one bearing the falsified signature Bradley had risked everything for. "This," she said quietly, "is where your story begins unraveling." A murmur rippled through the room. Bradley's hands trembled. Power had shifted, and everyone felt it. The boardroom felt colder now, as if the truth itself had lowered the temperature. Bradley stared at the forged document Marissa slid across the table, his breath catching in his throat. The room tilted not physically, but in the way a man's entire world tilts right before it collapses. This isn't what it looks like," he stammered, forcing a smile that trembled at the edges. Marissa is confused. She doesn't understand the financial. "Actually," Marissa said calmly, "I understand it perfectly." Julian leaned forward, voice smooth but razor sharp. "So does the compliance committee. They confirmed this morning that several signatures under your approval were falsified." Bradley's eyes darted between them, panic settling beneath his skin like a fever. "That's not possible. Only someone inside the department could." The door opened. Tara Jensen stepped in. Her makeup was smudged, her posture rigid. HR flanked her on both sides. She looked nothing like the confident, giggling mistress from the office gossip video. Today, she looked cornered. "Ms. Jensen," Julian said, "thank you for coming." Bradley surged to his feet. "Tara, don't say a word." But Tara didn't look at him. She looked at Marissa. Marissa, she said softly. "I'm sorry." Bradley's face twisted. "What are you doing?" HR placed a folder on the table, Tara's written statement. Emails, screenshots, videos, bank notifications, proof that Bradley used her login credentials to push approvals he didn't want traced. She flipped the moment she realized criminal charges were involved. Harris said, arms folded. "Self-preservation is a powerful motivator." Tara's voice shook. "He told me it was safe. He told me no one would ever know. I didn't realize your signature was forged until last week." Bradley lunged toward her, furious. "You little sit down," Julian warned, tone low but lethal. Security stepped forward, hands hovering near Bradley's shoulders. Bradley's rage cracked into desperation. "Marissa, you can fix this. Tell them you didn't mean to tell them it's a misunderstanding." Marissa met his eyes, and for the first time, he saw nothing he recognized there. No fear, no dependency, no love, just clarity. "I can't save you from consequences you created," she said quietly. "You didn't just betray me, you broke the law." The door opened again. 2 federal agents stepped inside. "Bradley Cole," one announced. "You're under arrest for financial fraud, falsification of documents, and misappropriation of corporate funds." Bradley's voice cracked. "Marissa, please." She looked at him steadily. "This is what you earned." And as he was escorted out of the room, every executive watched the fall of a man who once believed he was untouchable. Spring sunlight drifted lazily through the open windows of the Beverly Hills guest house, filling the room with warmth. Marissa sat on the edge of the bed, cradling her newborn daughter, Lillian Grace, her tiny fingers curling around Marissa's thumb with surprising strength. The soft weight of the baby against her chest felt like the first true promise of peace she'd ever known. No tension, no fear, just breath, just life. Across the room, a vase of fresh white peonies sat on the dresser, a gift from Julian with a simple note. "For the strongest woman I know." He hadn't pushed, he hadn't imposed. He simply stayed quietly offering support, never demanding anything in return. 3 weeks after Bradley's arrest, the legal storm had finally settled. Bradley faced multiple felony charges. His assets were frozen, his position terminated, and his reputation dissolved in a matter of days. Tara, stripped of her fabricated glamour, entered a plea deal and vanished from public view. Justice hadn't been loud. It had been precise, exactly as Marissa deserved. She gently rocked Lillian, inhaling the sweet newborn scent. "We made it," she whispered. "I promised I'd protect you. And I will." A soft knock sounded on the doorway. Julian stepped inside, holding a folder, not businesslike, but respectful, almost hesitant. He wore no suit today, just a simple sweater and the quiet warmth that had become a constant in her life. "Can I come in?" he asked. She nodded, smiling. He approached, gaze softening as he looked at Lillian. "She's beautiful. She looks like you." Marissa laughed lightly. "Poor kid." "Lucky kid," he corrected gently. He sat beside her, opening the folder. "I know you're still adjusting, but there's something I want to show you." Inside lay documents owns she never expected. A partnership agreement, a co-founder proposal, ownership shares. Julian met her eyes. "Your firm is brilliant, Marissa, but I want to help you scale it. No strings, no pressure, just the belief that you deserve to lead something extraordinary." Emotion welled in her throat, not because she needed saving, but because someone finally saw her worth without diminishing her strength. "And one more thing," Julian added softly. "When you're ready, not today, not tomorrow, but whenever your heart feels whole again, I'd like to take you to dinner. A real date. As 2 people who survived their storms." Marissa looked at him, really looked. A man who didn't break her. A man who didn't need her small. A man who offered love without taking her freedom. She smiled, tears warm and cleansing. "I'd like that," she whispered. "Someday." Julian reached out, brushing Lillian's tiny hand with one finger. "Then someday," he said softly, "I'll be here." Outside, the California breeze rustled the garden lavender. Inside, Marissa held her daughter close, no longer a woman escaping a life, but a woman stepping into a future she chose. A future built on truth, strength, and love she finally knew she deserved. You're still here with us until this moment, aren't you? And if you are, maybe something in Marissa's journey touched your heart in a way you didn't expect. Maybe it reminded you of a quiet pain you once carried, or a strength you forgot you had. You know, stories like this aren't just drama, they're mirrors. They remind us, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, the obstacle is the way. Sometimes life breaks us open not to destroy us, but to rebuild us. And Seneca once said, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave." Marissa didn't rise because life was kind to her. She rose because she chose to believe she deserved more. And so do you. No matter who hurt you, no matter what you lost, no matter how long you stayed somewhere your heart had already left. Healing isn't instant. It's a series of tiny choices. To walk away, to breathe again, to trust yourself, to open the door to a new beginning. If this story made you feel even a small spark of strength or hope, then please like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you don't walk this journey alone. We're here with you. Always.